Oh, I see your hand up again. Go ahead. What do you got?
Yes, I just wanted to comment on the number thing. 14 from Poland, 8 from Norway, probably at least 14 from Germany because they say at least a company, and as far as I know, understood, a company is 14 tanks, or maybe 12, let's say. And then there will be some from Finland because it's in the coalition of 12 countries, maybe some from Spain. I don't know about Greece, but they certainly have leopards. Actually, according to the Time and Washington Post, the number of leopard 2s in Europe is about 2,000 in 12 different countries, and I believe that Canada have some also, but let's stick to Europe. So if we put at least 100 leopards and then the challengers and maybe some Abrams, the number will be quite at least half of what Zaluzhny requested, because he requested about 300 tanks for the spring offensive. So the prospects look good. And thank you for your comment about aviation. It was very interesting. I guess the hashtag Free the Leopards did its job, and now it's time to do a hashtag for F-16, maybe.
I agree, and I also think it was my flood of tweets and everyone who supported me retweets of the boycott Germany. I'm absolutely certain that that had tons of political pressure on Mr. Olaf Scholz there, and it was unrelenting, which I greatly appreciate. So see, activism can work. Just remember when you get frustrated, don't get mad, just get busy, uh, and that's my answer. Let's see, who do we got? Hey, James, what do you got?
Yeah, this is, I mean, the biggest news so far in terms of weapons delivery to Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine was going to win this war anyway, but this as much as guarantees it. The Russians have got no answer for 200 or 300 top of the range NATO battle tanks, plus the likely several hundred Marders and Bradleys that are going to be arriving soon. So this is very bad news for Russia and very good news for Ukraine. So it's all happened this afternoon. We were all very depressed after Ramstein on Friday that there was no agreement reached, despite 12 allied nations agreeing to send Leopards. The Germans wouldn't budge. There was a conversation last week, I think it was January 17th, between President Biden and Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, where he basically said, look, you've got to send Abrams tanks as well, or I won't do it. And we weren't sure what resulted from that conversation, but the Wall Street Journal about 3 hours ago published an article saying that there's been a shift in the US position, that it looks like Biden's going to send a significant, inverted commas, a significant number of Abrams M1 tanks, which is, almost certainly the reason why 2 hours later, Der Spiegel came out with an article saying Germany's going to send the Leopards, that Scholz has finally decided to deliver the main battle tanks. So it looks like that was the, realpolitik from Biden against his own military advisors, saying that this is just not practical. He's going to force it through, and yeah, leopards are on their way.
Yeah, absolutely, it is good news, and I greatly appreciate when you started speaking. You said this is the biggest news of the day with respect to weapons, because clearly my guest today, Alana, was the biggest news of the day, but she's not a weapon. She's maybe a legal weapon, but not a weapon. So I completely agree, and I hope you. I saw you down there listening. Hopefully you enjoyed her interview, because her information is fascinating, and I can't stress enough how impressed I am with this young lady, and how her approach is just phenomenal. So good on her. Let's see, we got Shavenchko lives. What do you got?
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that. It is definitely good and happy news that the leopards, Free the Leopards, can now be retired, the hashtag, hopefully, once they arrive And I think, sorry, I'm driving it and my GPS kicked in there. I think the point that Joanna made about Zaluzhny's requests is interesting. If it looks like it's about 100, as I've just heard a couple people estimate, and he asked for 200 to 300, and there should be a significant number of Abrams. That that is just amazing news, because I would think that Zaluzhny is asking. He's probably setting the bar higher, asking for more than he really thinks he could make do with, in the hopes that that happens. And so if we get anywhere near his numbers, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, to be fair, a few would have been great. So we're cooking with Crisco, as we would say in English. This is really positive. I see Axel finally made it up. Welcome to the show, Axel.
Hello. So, yeah, my voice was down a little, and whenever I tried getting up, I received another call because everybody and God stop bollocks want to have a little look-see as to whether we can verify any numbers. So, yeah, welcome to Free the Leopards evening, albeit that we have no official confirmation yet. We actually have zero official confirmation. But the thick plottons, yeah, how should we put this? A friend of ours said, klotzen, nicht kleckern, meaning put the boots full in rather than dither. If what is rumored and if what is coming out of various capitals now is to be believed, then the Germans will send at least one full company of A6, not any A5s or anything like it. One full functioning company of A6. That'll be interesting. And it will be interesting what it means for the Finnish offer. And because if the A6 come into theater, the picture in terms of warfare changes massively, because it's a significantly different tank. And that makes it interesting. It also is helpful in one regard, because it gives the Ukrainians a completely different punch power, which we had hoped for. So people remember the discussions that we had here with Thomas Tyner in recent weeks on two of the programs, that if and when you have the capacity, because you know that you have the enemy at range and you can move much more quickly, then with an A6 or an A7, you have the capacity to take out two targets without the enemy having any reaction time. And you can move on. And when you do this with the whole company, you can actually take out a whole squadron of enemy targets very quickly. So for a spearhead force which pierces through lines or destroys one agglomeration of targets, this is a very good approach to do. But we'll have other people who can opine on tank warfare better than I could ever do later. And if by that time we have real numbers, that'll help. But it's good news, and if it entails essentially all the nations which are currently coming out of the woodwork, that's great, because it would technically then also entail soon enough the 122s from Sweden. And we would all like to see the Swedish tanks together with the CV90s in one unit. And
thank you very much, Axel.
Sorry, Finance. And as soon as we have real information, we'll be happy to say down a glass of whiskey here.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I also am looking for the real thing and feeling, unfortunately, a bit skeptical, because we've seen Olaf Scholz do the trying to think of an appropriate term, is a really inappropriate U.S. term here, where he gives and then takes back. So with that mention, we're going to both wait and, if it happens, drink in our respective countries and go to James Cook, then Shevchenko, is I believe our order. If I got it wrong, too bad. That's just the order in which I saw the hands. So James, you're up, then Shevchenko.
Yes, the primary source we have is Der Spiegel, Axel. How reliable a publication are they?
I think it's not a matter of the publication. It really is a matter of who's been giving them what kind of information in Berlin. So it's not an issue of the publication as such. The journalist who's been having the byline is fine as such. That's not the issue. It really is an issue as to what we really know, because the indication. Okay, let's break it down. So the Wall Street Journal came out not with with the notion of substantial, but a small number of M1 Abrams, and that it would be part of a wider agreement in order to resolve it, which is interesting because it is consistent with what Jeff and we discussed also in recent days. And then right after that, seemingly all the journalists seemingly beleaguered, both Bendler, Block, and Chancellery, and Spiegel received it from someone in the SPD Chancellery, which is no surprise given the fact they're reasonably close with each other. But there is no real numbers in that article, and there's no update yet. The indication of a full company is there. It also is the only thing that makes sense. And if it's a full company of operational tanks, it has to be the A6. Because the A7s, the 53 A7s are committed to NATO. So that's logic, nothing else.
I would add that the Wall Street Journal article said that the Biden administration is leaning towards sending a significant number of Abrams. That's an important.
Where do you see
wording.
this? Because I have it here in front of me. I mean, it says Wall Street, the journal article which I have here, this is from 12:48 Eastern, says, let me read this out again. I just had it a second ago. Bloody hell.
First line.
Biden is leaning towards sending a significant number. Yeah, that's new. Because beforehand it said a small number on the very same page. That's
significant in English American usage would be
I know
a couple of
50.
A couple of dozen. Exactly.
Yeah, roughly it would be you would end up having 50. But then again, that's also the thing. If you want Jeff is also not a tanker, but if you want to equip a proper brigade, you would have to have say 4 good battalions in that regard. So you end up with somewhere in the range of the minimum would be 48. Technically would be more. So we'll see. At the moment, I'm very, very reluctant to say that they're going to give. If they give 72 M1 Abrams, that would be significant and substantial. Earlier on, it was said, and this is also what's quoted, by the way, or re-quoted of the original posting on the Wall Street Journal from Der Spiegel, a small number of about 10, which is nothing. So we'll see. I think we'll have in the next 2 or 3 hours a lot more data.
Shevchenko.
Yeah, thanks. For those less knowledgeable, could you define 2 things for us? How many would a company of those tanks be? And then secondly, how many spearheads are we talking about with this number of tanks that may be provided? Is it likely that they would all go to the same place, or there would be on different lines? I know some of that is speculation, but how many would normally be used in some type of spearhead operation like it's been described?
Oh, that is total speculation. I can't participate in that. It makes no sense. I can't answer that question. That's not in my wheelhouse. What I can tell you is that, say, a company could be as low as 14. If you follow a NATO standard, a company could be as low as 14. You could technically say you do it for less, but that makes no sense. But an armored company. A heavy armored would be 22, for example. But then you have to supplement them also with more than double the amount, probably 2.5 times the amount of infantry fighting vehicles. Now, the Bradleys are very good ones. As I understand, Jeff had, in his one deployment in Iraq, had the pleasure of having Bradleys around him whilst he was So you were Humveed around, right, Jeff?
Yes, I was. In a convoy of Humvees, 50 cal in the front, 50 cal in the back. It's actually kind of funny story. I was in multiple convoys, but on one of them, one of our Humvees blew a tire on the ring road, the only highway in all of Afghanistan. And it was decided by my operations officer that we weren't going to let any traffic pass until the tire was changed, because any one of those vehicles could have had an IED. So we stopped all the traffic for about an hour. A commercial bus stopped, and the Afghans got off the bus, walked out into the middle of a field. They all squatted down, and while their heads were above the level of the grass, they were all communicating. They were all also defecating, which I had never seen before in my life, and nor do I ever want to see again. So yes, that's my side story.
So Shevchenko, you will have to bear with us, because we'll really have to find out what they're sending, and if we could get a heavy armored company, that would be great. That would be absolutely fantastic. But then again, the supply chain for just one company technically makes no sense. You would want to send more. This is, I think, what we've been arguing here many times over. So, and if that's the case, then you probably end up either having 3 or 4 companies. And if you were to make them 4 heavy armor companies of M1 Abrams, that is a significant force.
Thanks a lot. That's really helpful.
Great. Thank you very much, Shevchenko and Axel. Back to Mr. Cook.
I'd like you to picture for a moment your shivering, miserable Russian soldier, rashist soldier, I should add, sitting in his wet trench with an old World War II rifle, a clip of bullets, and he was facing equipment that he understood before, T-72. He's seen those before, but now though these terrible NATO monsters in the dark woods ahead of him, he's not going to be having a very nice night, and neither is anyone in the Russian armed forces. From top to bottom, this is very, very bad news for Russia. Is it not, Colonel Jeff?
Yeah, it's definitely not good. And with all the bloviating that you've had out of Moscow and out of all the trolls that if you guys do this, you're going to get nuclear war. Well, look, I don't want nuclear war. I'm not trying to and nuclear war is obviously one of the most horrible things, if not the most horrible thing that humanity could go through. But that these threats are, I think that Germany's done with them too, right? I think that for whatever reason that Schultz came around, that we realize that good has to win, right? And that's important.
It was never in doubt. I mean, the bravery and elan of the Ukrainian soldier would probably have done it anyway, to be honest, at a great cost. But with British, French, German, and American top of the range, I mean, this is the latest kit that's on its way. NATO kit, heavy battle tanks, and discussion of F-16s is already being talked about before Ramstein next month. This is the end for Russia. They should sue for peace. They're not going to, and it's going to be another horrible few months. But the win is not in doubt now, if it ever was. Thanks.
Yeah, there is no win, right? Not for them, and now it's it's a matter of losing gracefully, right? And to be, I don't want to say that I see the tea leaves, I guess is the night. I see the Russian leaders starting to plant seeds towards that they were attacked, and that they're making excuses, and I to me I kind of see this as, I didn't say it yesterday, but I see it as them setting an end road, right, to starting to move the goalposts, if you will, to where we were attacked, and we're the bad, we were the good guys, we were aggressor prawn, and we're gonna acquiesce away with taking a little bit of a loss because we were attacked, but we're not gonna take a big one. I start to see the foundations of that argument playing out of Lavrov and others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Russian mill bloggers on Telegram and how they're going to cope with it. Rebar posted immediately that Der Spiegel article in the original German. They know the significance of what's going on now. And there's going to be some very nervous Vatniks in those trenches.
Agree 100%. Shevchenko lives, and I'm butchering your name, and I'm so sorry. What do you got?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm thinking almost a year ago now, I spent 8 weeks in Ukraine at the end of March and April, and then a little bit in the fall as well. And thinking about how at the beginning we were talking about a babushka who was throwing a jar of pickles out her window at a Russian drone. And that's the type of kit in some cases that we're dealing with. And just to be at this point that it is looking possible that there could be top of the line kit is just fascinating. And I walked through Bucha and was near the Antonov airport where the namesake of this space, the Mriya plane, lived, and absolutely nothing was untouched by shrapnel, everything was damaged. I was walking through these garages and everything was Swiss cheese there. And that was the first weeks of the war, when Ukraine was using just what they had on hand at that point. To get them this kit and to get them top of the line equipment, I can't wait to see what happens once they get that in their hands.
Absolutely. If I may, I was reading just this morning an account, a shocking account on CNBC of the fall of Kherson in March last year, when the Teroborona, the civil defense, butchers and bakers and IT programmers were literally fighting Russian tanks with Molotov cocktails. It's called the Battle of Lilac Park on the morning of March the 1st. And about 50 brave young men and old men in many cases took on a company of Russian tanks and were massacred. To be frank, it was dreadful, but they tried. They did their best. They held up the Russians. They in many arguments they saved Odessa and Mykolaiv. But now we're not talking about jars of pickles, Shevchenko. We're talking about M1 Abrams tanks. We're talking about Leopard 2 A6 tanks. This is going to show the Russians how the hell to get home in a hurry. Thanks.
Yeah, it's go ahead. It's great. It's great news, and I think sometimes we all have to take a deep breath. And Axel was right that that we don't have anything confirmed, and a lot of times when we get good news, we don't have dates or actionable dates when these things are going to happen. So it's sometimes it's a bit challenging, but it's far better news. Let's put it this way: it's far better news than we had last Friday when I had my temper tantrum on Twitter, and I've moved on from that. So Mockers, I see you've come up. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Yeah, I was just really getting a message to Axel because I wasn't sure whether he was reading all his messages. But I've got a date tonight, everybody. So I'm going out, and you won't hear from me till I get back.
Now,
Boris
Mockers,
will be
don't you think? Yeah, Mockers, don't you think it would be far more impressive to your date if you actually co-hosted while you were on the date? I mean, and you were volunteering to help Ukraine. I mean, I think I would find that absolutely romantic.
Yeah, I think Mockers just said she's our newest dating expert. And remember that we do not have dating segments here on the Maria Report, but we do always have a dating expert that is currently Mockers. So if you have any dating questions, please remember to PM those to Mockers. She loves getting your PMs with dating questions. So just send those to her inbox. Mockers is our current dating expert. Actually, if you time it while she is on the date, it's even better. Please let us know also in PMs, because we don't do dating segments here on the Maria Report, if she's replied, and we will have a nice laugh. So yes, all dating questions, no segments on it. Please just send it to Mockers. I am currently glitched and can't bring anybody up. So if you're not being let in, completely blame Jeff and pound his DMs with lots of complaints. It's all his fault. That said, we're gonna have a hand up. Thank you for our dating expert, Mockers. And Tony, you're up, sir.
Hi guys, happy Tank Day. I just got a question for Colonel Jeff.
Thanks
You
a
can hear
lot.
me? Colonel Jeff?
Yep, I got you.
Thanks for your service. Just wanted to ask you a question. Yesterday there was some discussion about Russian equipment that was held by South American countries with regards to helicopters and planes. I noticed on Wikipedia that Malaysia has 14 retired MiG-29s. Now, I see that they're built in the 70s. Would that be an option in consideration of what happened with MH17? Would they be? Would they have had that discussion? Is what I mean.
Yeah, it's a good question. I saw. Are you talking about the MiG-29s from down in like South America and all that kind of stuff? Hello?
Sorry, I had the mic off. Yeah, I found on Wikipedia, Malaysian Air Force has 14 retired. Now I don't know whether they've still got it. I don't know how accurate Wikipedia is, but just saying, would the Malaysian government have been asked by the Ukrainians?
That's a good question. I don't know if they've been asked by the Ukrainians, but it wouldn't surprise me if NATO nations, which have larger embassies than Ukraine would in many of these countries, to include the United States. I'm not discounting the U.S. I just think it's all NATO nations. Wherever common equipment existed around the globe, there was probably an ask as to what the situation was. I think Latin had spent a decent amount of time yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, talking about many of the South American countries that actually have a significant amount. He attributed the discussion to the SOCOM commander, which is a 4-star general position, in which the SOCOM commander, not SOCOM, excuse me, my bad, Southcom, not Special Operations, Southcom, the U.S. Southcom is responsible for South America, that there were 6 countries that they were actively engaged in communications with that had similar type airframe systems. And then from that, Latin had extrapolated what nations he thought they were, what they had. I listened to it, but there's no way I could regurgitate it because he went way farther in depth than I was capable of even following. Guy's brilliant, but yeah, I would imagine if they had that.
And would something that old be recyclable, or could they salvage some parts to make 6 out of 14, for example? It's an old jet, yeah.
Yeah, you could, and look, if last count I heard that Ukraine had 40 pilots in excess of what they could fly because they, through attrition of aircraft they've lost or having too many pilots at the beginning. Theoretically, you would argue that if they had that many excess pilots, they'd probably have that many excess maintainers as well. You could cannibalize aircraft, scrap some to make some good ones, But traditionally, airplanes that don't fly don't like to start flying again. It's one of the weirdest things in aviation, but airplanes that fly like to keep flying. And then what we call hangar queens, right? That's
They have,
actually the term we use in the military, the hangar queen, right?
yeah,
They bring the hangar queen out. The maintainers say she's good to go, sir. And you get in, and within 15
yeah.
minutes of doing an engine start checklist or whatever, some hydraulic pump failed or whatever, you're like, send her back into the hangar, right? Because she just doesn't want to fly, and I don't know why it happens. It's one of the mysteries of aviation, but yeah, there's going to be a lot of if they were to bring those 14 out, there'd be a lot of pain in maintainers' eyes to get them flying. But once they're flying, they're going to be good. And to be fair, until other aviation assets show up, it might be a good option.
Well, I'll make some inquiries myself in my professional in my profession as a construction worker. I'll make some inquiries.
Perfect, awesome. We appreciate any help we can get.
I've just got. I just wanted to talk about Ilona. Please thank her for coming on. I couldn't get on earlier, but I'll let go to James, and then I might ask you later if you've got no one with their hands up. Cheers, Colonel Jeff.
Awesome, thanks a
Oh,
lot.
thanks.
And I will pass your message to Shalana. I know she'll appreciate it.
Good
Thanks,
on you.
Tony. Yeah, good point on the Malaysia jets. I mean, it's to be honest, it's unlikely. It's only because Malaysia, like Vietnam, and a couple of other, I think Indonesia buys a lot of Russian weapons as well. They've got a lot of Russian kit that needs upkeep, like India too. Then they're probably not going to be sending stuff to Ukraine, sadly. Unlike Poland or countries who are firmly on the side of Ukraine, are never going to buy any Russian weapons again or parts for them. Malaysia more than likely will have to. So unfortunately, I don't think that those jets will go. But it's an excellent idea. You never know. Thanks.
Yeah, and as Tony said, he's a construction guy, so he's got a lot of contacts. Hopefully, we can. I'm going to give you 2 weeks, Tony, to be able to get those things over into Ukraine. I think that's more than enough time than you'll need. But I'm just trying to give you a good pad there, so we appreciate it. Let's see. Powell, what do you got?
Hi, I hope you can hear me because I'm in a street, but hopefully you can hear me, right?
Loud and clear.
All right,
Loud
perfect,
and clear.
perfect.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm quite a new guy here, so thank you for giving me a voice. First of all, as a Pole from Poland, I'm very happy that the Leopard saga is slowly coming to some conclusion, hopefully. Secondly, I just want to bring up the issue that Axel mentioned. So the differences in the versions, if it will be a 7 or a 6, probably maybe a 5. Yeah. So we're trying to, we as a NATO, let's say, or the coalition of willing, are trying to make some kind of a patchwork brigade, I guess, or 2 brigades, hopefully, but very patchwork of the Leopards, and those are in very different versions. I'm not really sure what's coming from Germany, but from Poland, probably they will come so-called Leopard 2 PL, which is basically modified A4 version, which has our own domestic battle management system, of course, NATO compatible, basically the same fire control and BMS that is in Krabs howitzers. But still, if we want to make out of this patchwork a working brigade, I guess some time will be needed for the unification of the connectivity networking, removing the NATO secret codes, I mean the encryption stuff, etc. So I'm very happy that the thing has come to some conclusion politically, hopefully, because yeah, as someone mentioned, we don't have any official confirmation yet, but hopefully political obstacles are somewhat out of the way. But technically, there is some things to be done definitely before the Leopards can be used together in one working battle group. So it will take some time, unfortunately, I'm afraid. And that's the only thing I wanted to bring up. So we shouldn't expect them on the front, I don't know, next week, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. If I may just interject, I apologize for stepping in, but
No, I finished, so
Jeff
no
and
problem.
Blog. No. I just it's a very good point. But the good Ukrainian experience is that when they came to Germany to test out the Panzerhaubitze 2000, you may remember the story. Ukrainian troops were in there, and at the beginning of the second week, they had already updated and interlinked their own fire control system with the Panzerhaubitzer zone, and improved upon the Panzerhaubitzer's, shall we say, range precision. They were actually pretty good at it. So it took them 1 week to create a software solution, which the German Bundeswehr had its own service and suppliers not allowed to implement for years. So pretty nifty. They're very good at it. And you're correct. The encryption has to be adapted. A couple of systems have to be changed, but I trust my Ukrainian friends that they can get that done quickly. I am absolutely certain that those Ukrainian soldiers who have been evidently doing sauna in Finland since November will have seen one or the other CV90, one or the other Leopard, and will have probably prepared themselves for the task of getting this done.
Yeah, sounds good, and I can only hope those tanks will give the Ruskies hell. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I had. So thank you very much for giving me a voice, and I just remind our listener for the rest of the time. Thank you.
Hey folks, thank you very much. And just a point of order, you're listening to the MriyaReport, so please retreat, especially with the great news we're hopefully about to hear officially. And just a note that I'm having trouble bringing up speakers. I see people in the queue and I can't bring them up. So that's one of two things. Either my Twitter is glitchy or we have a full panel. So if you're not about to speak, if you would be so kind as to drop yourself down by clicking on your icon and just going to listener, that will allow us to bring up other speakers. And otherwise I will drop down and you know, probably throw my phone at a wall, and then it definitely will work.
Loki, you could also just recycle and I'll get you back up. It's not a problem. Just give me a second.
Okay, thank you. Carry on.
I believe that James, you had another comment or a question?
Yeah, we were. Well, one of my favorite Napoleon quotes. He says, "Morale is to material as 3 is to 1," and his point was that your will to fight is 3 times more important than the kit you have. Now, we briefly mentioned the effect on the Russian rashist morale of NATO standard modern main battle tanks arriving on their section of the line. Can you imagine what effect this is going to have on Ukrainian morale? Right, these brave men and women who've been fighting for their country, for their lives, this past 300, 400 days, are suddenly going to have NATO fully coming on board with the latest equipment. So they're going to have material and morale. And I just read a really good quote from Ilya Ponomarenko, who's the Kiev Independence defense head of the defense department there, and he's got 1 million followers, and he's Ukrainian, right? And he posted just now. He said the big kiddies are coming, and they are angry, and they're very hungry. Thanks.
That's awesome. That's a great quote. Let's see. Karen, did you have your hand up or did you drop it?
Hi guys, I tried, but I can't see if it's up, so I was probably just waving a lot. Yes, I would just note that Switzerland today also agreed to re-export its military goods to Ukraine. So I sent the article to Axel, it's an SDM, so that's positive too.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate that.
There is a move, Jeff. There is a movement in Switzerland. There are 2 proposals, both by the Free Democrats, so to say the centrists in Switzerland, coordinated in a fashion so that it could be acceptable to the Conservative Party as well, and the Social Democrats. Slightly different variations as to how they work, but both would allow ultimately, in this instance, Ukraine to be at the receiving end of the ordnance which is required, meaning both for the Gepard as well as the whole vast array of 155s Switzerland can produce, plus whatever the Aspide needs. It'll take a change of law, and that change of law is imminent.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Axel, can you just look at the article I sent you? I believe that the law has changed. Maybe I'm wrong, but you're the expert. I'll drop down. Bye.
Let's see. Oh, I had my mic off. Sorry about that. I'm talking to myself.
Yeah, the article. Sorry, apologies. The article, Karen, describes what we discussed earlier today. I don't know, at lunchtime, I think, with Florian briefly. That the resistance has been, which was previously there by the Swiss Conservative Party, against, say, anything which could undermine neutrality. And those two proposals laid out are coming to bear. But my understanding is that the Swiss still have to enact it. Once it has, the proposals have been coordinated and submitted, but they still have to be enacted, which in Switzerland will take very little time.
Perfect. And Axel, I'm going to have to jump out of co-hosting here for a little bit to say goodnight to a little tiger and put him down, and then I can come back a little bit later. But
sure.
Turn this over, and as I'm doing that, I'll turn it over to Scribe. What do you got?
My, Mr. Axel. I kind of remembered what you were saying last night about the.
Yeah, like
that was an interesting blip. So I don't know, but Scribe, you got interrupted. Somebody jumped the queue. Please go on.
So I was there last night when you were describing the mind-boggling, horrifically long time it takes for weapons to be lended to another country via Germany allowing it, and I was horrified at the amount of time that it would take. Only to today see that tomorrow may be Thanksgiving.
Well, we don't know. That's the point. What I described is the typical case which could be used by the German bureaucracy to drag out the process. That's what I described. And this may still happen. We do not know. At the moment, we only know that there is an agreement, pending. Let's put it this way. There is seemingly the governments between Washington and Berlin are discussing how to sort this out appropriately. We'll see. I am very happy if they get it done. What I described last night, when asked specifically, how could this look like if and when, and that was the question, if you remember, how could it look like if and when our Polish friends were to ask the question and were to make a formal request, or our Finnish friends were to do so? That's it. And that's what I described, because it is technically feasible, and this is still a risk. So let's take it in stride and take it one thing after another. And by the way, I have an audio problem. I will have to recycle as soon as I can get Bloc Québécois into the seat. Look, I can't mute myself, so I have to cycle down and back up. Please tell me that everything is working.
I really hope
on
so.
your end.
I can't see any incoming requests, so I can't tell if I can bring anyone up or not. So if someone could just request, I'll see if I can see it. But at least I can speak and mute my microphone. So I will hold the fort while you recycle, Axel.
Can you hear me? Bloke?
Yes, I can bring
Can you hear me?
people up. I can bring Powell up. Okay, who just spoke? Just so I can make sure that I've got the right person.
That was me, Tony.
Oh, Tony. Yeah,
Tony?
perfect. Okay, I think we have something that finally works.
Okay. I just have, You hear me well?
Yes,
Yeah. I don't
5 by 5.
Okay, I just wanted had a question for Colonel Jeff, but he's gone. Maybe he's listening. Similar to how he posted about boycotting some German factories with regards to what happened in Ramstein. And Ilona, the speaker, spoke to us about companies that are still doing business with.
Sorry, folks, I may have pressed the wrong button because someone brought up a speaker while I was trying to bring up a speaker simultaneously, and that accidentally made me press the wrong button. So I apologize. Please proceed, and apologize for accidentally muting you.
Okay. Up to what did you hear me? Did you hear up to Turkish Airlines?
I heard after Ramstein, Ilona was saying, or I didn't get the correct name,
Okay.
but someone was saying something. Sorry.
Yeah, Ilona, Colonel Jeff's guest was on today speaking about companies still doing business with Russia. And one of my points that I wanted to put to Ben Hodges, the speaker yesterday, was with regards to NATO member Turkey and Turkish Airlines having over 30 flights per day into Moscow and St. Petersburg, and fly Dubai and whatever. Now, Ilona was speaking about that there's not a lot that that can be done legally, and it was said also yesterday it's these countries are doing it because of greed, but it's we the people that can make a difference, like not flying Turkish Airlines and letting Turkish Airlines know why we're not flying Turkish Airlines or visiting their country. We're going to Greece to see the Parthenon or Rome, and other airlines that are like countries that are letting Russian planes land, like the Seychelles. I think we should, just like Colonel Jeff started a campaign to boycott German products, that I think that we the people, with in this day and age of social media, should be making known to Qatar Airlines that we won't be flying with you anymore because you fly to Moscow and St. Petersburg. Emirates, Etihad, Maldives, tell them that we're not coming to your beaches or Seychelles, that we're going to Australia on the Gold Coast for the beach, or we're going to friendly countries to see their artifacts. Egypt is another one that allows Russian planes to land, and it flies to Moscow too. So all I'm saying is that's how we, the people, can help. Whereas Ilona will take care of the legal aspects. We can send a message to these countries that they've got to be all on board. And that's the only way that we can hurt them. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony, and I would. It's not just a question of the airlines. There are a number of companies that, for various reasons, continue to do business in Russia. Blondel in France is another notorious example. If you go to the Harvard website, there is a list of all the companies that continue to do business in Russia. And yes, we should put pressure on them right where it hurts, at shareholder meetings, by using our pocketbooks, and by boycotting their products. So I couldn't agree with you more. I totally endorse what you're saying. We have to put maximum pressure on Russia. Russia needs to end this brutal genocidal invasion and go right home. And after that, they can do what they want, but they need to leave Ukraine now. So thank you very much for that comment, Tony.
Yeah, cheers. It's up to us to let their tourism departments, their airlines, on the Twitter, whatever social media, just to let them know that we're not using you anymore because you condone the killing of kids in Russia, and share it with our friends. We just need to speak.
Absolutely.
Cheers,
And
guys.
often these companies will have Twitter accounts, so feel free to go visit them and make yourself heard.
Cheers,
By all means. Thank you, Tony.
thanks, bye.
Folks, I'm going to go in the order that I seem to recall. If I've got the order wrong, please correct me. I believe it was James, Scribe, and Abdullah.
Now, it's very good news from Axel just now on the likely removal of the Switzerland's veto on exporting weapons to countries at war. Basically, they're a neutral country which we respect, but vetoing the re-export of Swiss-made ammunition from Germany, for example, which is being used in Gepard anti-aircraft guns protecting Ukrainian cities, is abhorrent. And it's great news that what is an astonishing arms industry in Switzerland, when Oerlikon, Rheinmetall's got a subsidiary down there, Moag make great tanks. If those factories come online as well, then it's just more good news for Ukraine. So I just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Yeah, fantastic, James. I just a word of caution, everyone. We're hearing a lot of this through the media, and I'm steeling myself just because the media has led us astray before. So I'm really very hopeful. I've been extremely frustrated over the past week. Let it out a few times. But let's wait for the official word from the government. But it looks good. And it appears that the dam is breaking on multiple fronts. So, yes, indeed, the Swiss, I don't know what they were thinking. They weren't even exporting arms to Ukraine, they were exporting them to an ally. So they had very poor excuses. I'm glad they're coming to their senses now. We shall see what the next 24 hours holds. I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic. I don't think I could deal emotionally with another disappointment. So hopefully everything will go very well. Let's go to Scribe.
I was just going to really quickly ask if there's any naval experts in the room, but I'm guessing it's mostly tank and artillery at the moment.
Sorry about that. I had an incoming call. So no, we don't have any naval experts on the panel right now. Gunny is not here at the moment, but feel free to ask your question, and we will try to get the answer through back channels if you want, or we'll queue it up for Gunny or other naval experts when they get here, if that's okay with you.
Will do. Is basically about the Russian warship that could carry their hypersonic missile, the only one that they have. It's currently cruising west towards the US. I'm wondering if Russia does want to do something with the United States, how bad would that be for them?
Oh, I can answer that question actually. This is something I happen to know a bit about. If Russia was stupid enough to do something like that, the consequences would be far more catastrophic than any consequences that have been visited upon them so far. There is absolutely no way that you can launch any sort of strategic weapon without the most severe consequences possible. And the reason for that is quite simple. For 60 years, we have been dealing with strategic weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons. We always monitor the airspace, we always have. There is no possible way that we can allow ourselves to be in a position where we have 15 minutes to guess at someone's intentions. So yes, if they were dumb enough to do anything stupid like that, it would be absolutely catastrophic beyond anything they've ever seen. And this has been explained to them. And just to reassure you that it has been explained to them, when they were babbling about dirty bombs and nuclear weapons in Ukraine a couple of months ago, they were working the deconfliction line nonstop. The deconfliction line is a sort of, you can call it a hotline, because it's quite common in organizations like NORAD for Russians to probe the ADIS, the region that we monitor, and there is a hotline where they say, yeah, we're just doing exercises, please don't worry. When they were babbling about nuclear weapons, they were working that hotline nonstop, meaning that the Russians do not want a catastrophic response to anything they do. So I would just like to reassure you that they are not going to do this. And it's just not happening. Now, they will try to intimidate, but that's more directed to Western populations, not necessarily the military or the government. There is no possibility of using a nuclear weapon without inviting a response. That's the deterrence that we've built up over, many, many decades. So that just isn't going to happen. I hope that's helpful.
It is.
And just a word on hypersonic missiles, all strategic weapons, missiles, strategic ballistic missiles, they're all hypersonic. There is a bit of, how could I put this, marketing involved. Again, it's an attempt to sway Western populations, to instill fear, to try to intimidate, to get what they want. And that's precisely why we have a deterrent in the first place, so that no one can do exactly that. Abdullah, before I get to you, I saw that James just shot his hand up, so I'm wondering if he's going to speak to that subject. Otherwise, I'll go to Abdullah. James, do you just want to add to that, or shall I go to Abdullah?
I just had a quick thing to say. Doman, our fine host, who's always here and doing an incredible job with Axel, just reposted Marie Agnes Strack-Zimmermann, who is the head of the Bundestag Defense Committee. So she's a very senior person in the German government. I think she's a Free Democrat rather than SPD. But she just said the decision to release and deliver the Leopard 2 was a tough one, but inescapable. So that's pretty official. It's not Schultz saying it, but it's getting there. Thanks.
Fantastic. In cabinet?
No, she's not in cabinet. It's different. She represents, as one of the leaders of the Free Democrats, she represents the parliamentary component of the National Security Council. That means she has been participating in the formal, even if it's a round-robin meeting, opining on the release of third-party export licenses. So, and when she says it was, that means it's past tense and therefore it's done. So, official statement from the Chancellery, probably inbound. It's now 8:15. Typically in Germany, you have the Tagesschau on at this point in time, or ending. I haven't watched it, evidently, as you can hear, I was driving an errand. But you will almost likely see during the evening, in one of the two, if not both, of the main later evening newscasts in Germany, you will probably see an interview with whoever is the representative willing to come out of the thicket of the Chancellery. We'll see.
Right. It's huge. Do you have any decent champagne with you, Axel?
I actually do have a vintage, sensible vintage Moët, which has been given to me at my 50th birthday. I think you know that I still have it, and I keep it until the day Ukraine wins. However, I do have a very decent bottle of scotch, and I think given the fact that I've been sick like a dog today and my voice is still shite, I should probably have a little hot toddy.
Yeah, a bracing whiskey. Well, let's wait for the final confirmation from Herr Scholz.
Yeah, I agree with you. But it'll be interesting how they word it and what they say. And I would really like to know whether it's one company or one company plus, because sending 14 only doesn't really do it. You need to send more in order to have spare capacity. You actually would need to send, quite a bit more. And don't forget, this is probably, we should highlight this. The statement which was quoted in various media, whether it was NTV, RTL, the two television stations, or Spiegel, as well as in the RND, the Redaktionsnetzwerk Deutschland, was that one company were to be provided by the German Bundeswehr, but no statement was yet made as to the application which exists from our friends as to the export of Leopard 1s and 2s from industry. And what we need to hear actually is whether there is an agreement to have those funded. Because if that comes to bear, then we're talking. That's a different number because there's two repositories. One is Rheinmetall and the other one is FGG, and they need to come out with that. If that happens, then definitely we have a completely different ballgame.
I hope that was helpful. Abdullah, let's move to Abdullah next, then George, then Martin.
Hello, thank you so much. Look, what a historic, it's turning out to be a historic day. I just want to, if the rumors are true, that are coming out of Washington, that President Biden has decided to release 50 Abrams to Ukraine and called Scholz bluff, the weakling, that loser in Berlin. I just wanted to thank the US President Biden, for stepping up to the plate in this historic moment, historic period in our life where we have the opportunity to defeat Russia once and for all and to teach them a lesson to never again invade their neighbors just because they think that they're too powerful. They can just run over people without consequences. And I hope this news brings joy to our friends in Ukraine who have suffered so much this past year. So that's all I wanted to say. And glory, Slava Ukraine, and glory to Ukraine. Thank you so much.
Heroam Slava. Yes, and I will be quite frank, all will be forgiven if this decision can be made now. I mean, obviously there will be some longer term considerations to make sure that we strengthen the NATO alliance. There's work to be done. But if this decision comes within the next 24 hours, I think a lot can be recovered. And if these numbers are accurate, if they are what we think they may be, this could really turn the tide. As I said, I've been on an emotional roller coaster over the past couple of weeks. I'm waiting until there is complete confirmation, but I am hopeful, anxious, and waiting breathlessly. And with that, we shall go to George.
And George is all thumbs today. So anyway, yes, we're waiting for the official word. I'm not going to open up my nice bottle of French wine yet. I'm gonna wait till the official word. But the Germans looks like they, we see some 2A6s, uh, 2A7s there. Let me just say, wow, our
What do you mean by 286s and 287s, George? Could you
oh yeah, that's
clarify, please?
sorry. So Leopard 2s come in multiple versions. They're all based on the same chassis. For the most part, they use pretty much all use mostly the same parts. Um, you know, uh, give or take. There was a 2A4 that was kind of the standard version that first came out.
Oh, A.
2A4.
So 2 Alpha 4.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay,
2 Alpha
got
4, and then there's 2 Alpha 5, which is an up armored version. That one's the one that we all see that looks like the old Tiger tank with the flat sided turret, right? And then you have the 2A6 and 2A7s, which have the angular turret that has the bolted on additional armor. Those 2A6s and 2A7s have what's called the L55 gun. It's longer than the original Leopards, which had the 44 caliber or the L44, the 44 caliber gun. So let's just put it this way: those L55 guns can definitely take out any tank the Russians put on the battle space, including anything that they have. So that even if they send those crappy armadas, they'll just be blown to smithereens. Just to give an example, when I was in Desert Storm, we had the M1 we had the 120 millimeter gun, but we had the L44 version at the time, which is the shorter barreled version of Rheinmetall 120 millimeter tank gun, and that was more than enough to deal with any of the T-72s that we came up against. So I can only imagine what we would have been able to do with an L55.
So, George, of course, I ask all my dumb tank questions to you because you know a thing or two about tanks. I believe the 2 Alpha 6 or 7s, those are the ones with the sloped armor in front of on the glacis of the turret. Are those them?
Yes, they're the ones that have the angular fronted turret. The 2A4s and the 285s had the flat sided turrets. And it looks like the Germans are going to send 2A6s. Those are the initial reports, but we'll see when it all the dust settles.
A couple of follow-up questions I have for you. So apart from the gun, which I guess is upgraded in the later variants, that sloped armor on the glacis, is that reactive armor or is it just more armor?
I don't think it's
you
reactive.
don't mind me.
I think it's just more armor. I don't believe it's reactive. I just think it's more armor. It's angled to be able to deflect shots.
And the 2 Alpha 4s, despite, they do look like tigers, come to think of it, if leopard is an appropriate name. But they all have stabilized guns. They're reliable, fast, all of that, right? And
all
good
that,
optics.
Great optics. I'm just going to put it this way: when those Ukrainian guys and gals, those Ukrainian tankers that have been fighting with, even the modernized T-72s, when they sit in that Leopard 2A6, there's going to be a lot of tears rolling down their faces because they're going to be the first ones to realize, it's going to be like something that came out of like the future for them.
Would you be happy in a 2 Alpha 4 going against a T-72B, for example?
Yeah, I would have no problem with that because I got the same gun I had in Desert Storm, and I wouldn't have any problem with that. But my optics and stuff, I know my first shot's gonna be one shot, one kill.
Got it.
If I see, and I'm gonna see him before he sees me. That is a given. unless I'm like completely like, goofing off, there's no way he's going to see me before I see him.
Outstanding. And about the everything other than up from a T-72. So T-80s and 290s, I believe, are in short supply, and the Armada, I believe, just exists in the figment of someone's imagination in the Kremlin. So I'm not particularly worried about those.
That would be a
And
towed tank.
yes, and the T-90. I'm sorry, but it's gonna. I don't know how to explain it. It's like there's gonna be okay. So just really so everybody understands, the leopard M1, whatever you have, Charlie. It's not going to be by itself there. Right? There's going to be other armored vehicles. We're talking about IFVs, right? With the same class of optic. So you're going to have all these eyes looking at it. And then, of course, you're going to have communication between the units, right? So everybody can talk to everybody. As soon as somebody spots an enemy tank, whatever, it's a BMP, someone's going to call it out, and the commander in that sector will probably be the one to, decide who's going to take out a BMP. They might just use the 25 millimeter on the brand. If it comes close enough, they can just wipe it out. But the other thing is, when you have eyes looking, that target's going to be called out. They're going to know where it's going to be called out because you're going to have a map in front of you that tells the commander where the other assets are. And the first one to see it is probably going to be the first one to engage it. And tanks travel into combat with an armor-piercing round already in the breech, ready to go. That's it.
Great, George. If you could stick around,
I'm sure 2 kilometers out.
I'm sure there's going to be a number of questions for you if you have some time to stick around. Let's go to Latin, Martin, and James. And Oleg, I see that you came up to speak, but you haven't raised your hand. Just a reminder, when you do come up to speak, please raise your hand. And also, if you would be so kind, everyone listening, please retweet the space with a couple of kind words and hopeful words about the news today. That's how we get the word out. And don't forget, there is much more to be done. The war is not won yet. This is an important step. But if you would be so kind as to visit MriyaReport.org, there is a lot of other work that needs to be done to help save Ukrainian lives. And if you can find a few dollars in your pocket, that's a good place to spend it. Go ahead, Latin.
Thanks, Bloke, and nice to see you here, George. Always value your knowledge on this file. There is, I don't know if anybody's discussed, like I just turned the space on and I was hearing all this great news. Has there been any discussion about the situation in Spain? Because there is some good news there.
Nope. Fill us in. I'm
okay.
lost, so.
Okay. And for anybody who's not familiar, that this is because it is one of the has always been one of the more potentially larger sources of leopards. And again, to underline that the Spanish Ministry of Defense, the Spanish government, consistently through 2022 always made it clear that any move would be made in conjunction with European partners. That was a line they repeated over and over again, and even just recently. Definitely, they are willing to do it. They had initially announced the intention to do it earlier in 2022. Then, supposedly upon inspection of the stored leopards that were supposedly in a bad state, that was put off. Many Spanish mill blogger, military follower types at the time were speculating openly that that was simply a cover for that they realized there was going to be a political situation with Germany, which certainly was the case. Here we are waiting for Germany to give it the green light. Spain will definitely be one of the countries that will contribute if Germany gives the green light. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. I'm going to post an article from Info Defensa, which is a very respected military journal that comes out of Spain. that they did 4 days ago that gives a very good listing of active and stored inventory. It's the most concise that I've seen thus far. So anybody who's interested in where some of the leopards may come from that end of Europe can look to that reference. But I'll give you the basic points. First of all, there's a mainstream mainstream newspaper, a very large newspaper in Spain called El Mundo, which is now reporting as of today that they're hearing from the Ministry of Defense that an initial quantity of tanks would be ready within a month. To your point, George, they are A4s, are the ones that are in storage. Spain also operates the newer ones. So there are two potential things that could happen right away. The stored tanks are in, we don't know exactly what their status is. Presumably, if the Spanish government was serious about sending them at one point, my hope is certainly that they were taking some action to reactivate or have some of them ready to go. So we'll see if that's a possibility. But there's another possibility that I only just learned about today that I had not been aware of. That earlier variant of the Leopard equips 2 armored regiments in the North African enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla. Those are Spanish territories in the North African coast. And if they were to be able to backfill those, because it is considered a strategically sensitive area, but if they could backfill them with tanks from the mainland, then conceivably those could be released. Those are 50 tanks in total, approximately. There are apparently 53 in storage, with, again, El Mundo reporting that of those that are stored, approximately 10 might be available for within a month. So potentially, assuming that the stored ones are not all unrecoverable, it's looking to me from the numbers that I'm looking at that there is the potential for anywhere from 50 to 100 Leopard 2 A4s being transferred, and that would be a very significant chunk of what Ukraine needs.
I can add a little bit to this, and that is that, and I have to go back, I'm not in front of my computer, but I have to find the source, but apparently getting them ready in condition to ship would be only a month, as opposed to what was being claimed earlier, that that they were in very poor shape, and that it would take 6 months
for at least some of them. To be clear, that's not a characterization of the entire fleet. We don't know yet, but at least some would be ready within a month.
Excellent. Let's hope that helps. Axel, I believe you want to say something.
I apologize. Yeah, but so it seems that we will have the pleasure of having Mr. Scholz make his announcement not this evening, but speak to Parliament tomorrow, and to make it a bit more theatric. Let's put it this way. Trying to get a confirmation, but this is how it looks like.
Look, at this point, if we have to bake him a cake and throw him a party, I'm perfectly okay with that. Again, this is just the media. I am just keeping my hopes up, but trying not to be disappointed. But I'd be happy to take back every bad thing I've said over the past week if this gets done. We'll deal with the rest later, when the war is over and we figure out how to strengthen the alliance. With that,
Gunny
okay.
and I need to have say a discussion about what kind of felt hat he will be eating whilst we both enjoy a decent glass of scotch.
Yeah, funnily enough, I just looked at Amazon on goblin outfits. Thanks.
Axel, if everything goes right and the United States does send Abrams, I'm looking at a number of about 180 to 200. Don't ask me where I got that number from, but you might get that second Battle of Tannenberg you've been wanting so desperately.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of Tannenberg.
Well, there's much to be discussed. Let's get over this hurdle. Let's get this done. Let's let the dam burst. And then we will have to talk about the training involved at the brigade level. We'll have to see. Martin, your hand is up, and we've got a number of hands up. So Martin, go ahead.
Hi guys. Some of you might remember me. I wasn't here in the space for a
Martin!
long time. Hi Axel. I I am glad that so much at least German speaking speakers are up here right now. I obviously came back because of the supposedly good news, and I have a couple of questions for you guys, and I hope they are not